humans. Greetings, humans, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Dana Murray Podcast. Thank you. You're far too kind, sir. Thank you. This is where we endeavor to find common ground between all people with discussions on culture, social evolution, music, and the human condition. Because humans are fucked up. But I digress. I'm delighted to introduce you guys to my friend, the incredible, the ultra-talented Miss Bofield Berry Fisher, author, playwright, activist, and on the sneak tip, a country music lover. We had an amazing discussion about her latest work, a play entitled The Red Summer, which chronicled the story of Will Brown, a black man lynched in Omaha, Nebraska in 1919, which was but a chapter in a much larger novel, which was The Red Summer and all the things that happened in America in the year 1919. A lot of things that aren't in your history books that should be in your history books. So without further ado, here is the discussion with Miss Bofield Berry Fisher. Enjoy. All right, everybody. Dana Murray here, Dana Murray Podcast. We have the incomparable, the ultra-talented,
thank you,
beautiful Mrs. Bofield Berry Fisher.
Thank you.
See, normally David would have some sound effects or some shit here,
Can I get a rah, rah, rah? Or like...
once again, he is not on point. How you doing, Bofield?
I'm good, Dana.
I'm so happy that you are here. How was your trip out here? It wasn't too bad, right?
It was real long and real corny.
You mean physical corn?
I texted my husband. I was like, just so you know, I'm going all the way out here. Okay, so if you don't hear from my ass, you come looking for me out here in the countryside.
You should have known you'd be. Oh shit, I'm out here. I mean,
I know, but I got my own fears about what am I doing. But I was like, I told him, I was like, I'm out here with some black folks. Okay, they making it work.
So you know what? People from Omaha love you, know about you. But for those who may not know who you are, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Omaha. I spent a few years away just traveling, doing my thing when I was a bachelor. And then I came home and I started working in branding and marketing and PR. And then that parlayed into being on boards across the city, working in entertainment, working with kids. And it's just kind of exploded into kind of a jack of all trades, doing everything in entertainment and with children and with our community that I can.
Now, I know you wrote a book involving children.
Well, it's called Childhood Friends, but it's really about friends who've grown up and then sorry, David's trying to catch me with a picture. It's about friends who've grown up and then the difference between friends who have gone away and like experienced more of the world and how they see their childhood friends when they come back home.
Awesome.
And how a lot of things haven't changed.
Is that your only book you've written? How many books have you written?
That's it. Writing a book is so tedious. I'm working on one right now that I need to go down south and do some more research for. It's like a Southern Gothic, mystical, magical tale of the bayou.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. It's
Gothic,
based on some creepy real life stuff.
Like on some True Blood type shit?
Yeah, but try like True Blood with Beloved.
Oh,
Yeah.
I feel you. I feel you.
Yes.
I feel you. I like that. I like that a lot. So before we get to our main topic, being a playwright, how many plays have you written?
Oh, I mean, how many good plays have I written? 2. How many plays?
How many featured works have you?
Have I written? Probably 10, and then I've had 4 productions, and then I have 2 plays that I would actually let people read.
I got you. I got you.
It's been a growing. I've been doing it for a long time, so you go back and you look at something you wrote 10 years ago, and where you were, your headspace,
exactly,
the people around you. Is completely different than where you are today.
Right. So, your recent work, The Red Summer. I got to tell you, for those of you who don't know by now, if you don't know, I don't know why you don't know, but The Red Summer in its entirety embodies a lot of things that were happening in the country around 1919, but the Will Brown story, which is unique to Omaha, is powerful. And people who don't know, I won't get into a lot of the details involving that, other than to say, a black man in 1919 was lynched, like a lot of black men were in that year. But for you to make a play, a theater piece out of this, I think I read somewhere that you said this is something that is needed now, 50 years from now, and it should have been done 50 years earlier than now.
Right.
I think I read that somewhere.
Right.
Just tell me about the motivation behind taking on such heavy material.
Well, so the motivation for this play, it's really weird because as 2019 was approaching, I feel like it was in the air. It was thick in the air with a lot of black artists and black community leaders in Omaha that we know this is coming up and something's got to happen. So I actually had a friend he's from Omaha, but he's in LA, Kelsey. He called me up and he was like, "Hey, I'm coming in town for Christmas. I want to talk to you about doing something about Will Brown." And I was like, "Kelsey, I've been thinking about that too." Okay, so we hooked up and I was like, "Well, it's got to be a play." Kelsey's an actor. I'm a playwright, so it was just our natural, genre. And then Kelsey hooked me up at the Blue Barn. I didn't have a relationship there, but he had a long-standing one.
Right.
And so we took the script there, and so Susan, the director, she's notorious about being picky about scripts. I mean, this woman will take her time and get it right. And so I didn't expect her to pick it up. It was a first draft. It was really quickly written and thrown together. But I came in there, you know how we do. I came in there with 9 people.
She rolled in deep.
I rolled in with the whole entourage.
With a posse anyway. Whenever there's some serious shit, we got to roll with backup. You notice that?
Yes.
Anyway,
but it was like that too. And it's like the Blue Barn has been so gracious and welcoming and wonderful, but they don't have black folks in there like that.
Right.
So I was like, I'm here with my people.
They're like, why?
They're like, okay. I'm like, we're just going to do a reading.
Right.
Generally, you bring in the script and then maybe you guys all read it together as a team. But I was like, just hear it out as a cast would. And she was really interested in it. And then 2 days later, she was like, I want to do this on the season. So it was when in that first read through, I had said, okay, if they don't pick it up, if they don't want to do it, I'm just going to produce it myself. Or maybe Denise Chapman down at the Union will produce it, We'll do it somewhere.
Right.
And so then after they picked it up, that's when we really got busy in the research and like digging deep and like putting the final script together. And taking on that heavy of a subject has been heavy. I mean, there's really no other word for it. It's just taken over. I found myself in a dark depression during some of the research and writing.
I understand that. Having made having made an album called Negro Manifesto and spending close to a year just researching what I was going to talk about music, I know exactly what you mean. And it's interesting, this, I probably got hip to the Will Brown story maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And to a lot of people, it's almost like folklore or some tall tale or, whoa, once upon a time.
Yeah.
And when you tell people, they're like, oh, like, really? Oh, this happened? Oh, my, wow, cool. And I'm like, do you understand what I just said? When I saw, actually, my wife brought to me, they're doing a theater piece on the Red Summer about Will Brown. My first reaction, like, oh, shit. That's what I'm talking about. Because there's a lot of stuff that we can draw on from our history to, that's polarizing in nature, that shakes people up. A lot of people don't want to look back at that. But if you're black, I feel most of the problem and the divide between people of color and white America is lack of context, right? When time goes on, if you're white, it's easy to lose context as to why someone that doesn't look like you has a problem with something in society. Whereas if you're black, you roll with that all the time. That context is always there in front of you.
Yeah.
So anytime that I see things that can help bring context or shed light on the differences, I love that. Not in a dividing, polarizing way, but as a tool to bridge the gap, to find common ground. It's like, now can you understand, can you empathize with maybe what others might go through?
I feel that so deeply, because we have talkbacks every Friday after the show, and this was a thing I've been musing on as we respond and hear back from the audience. It's just that 100 years ago may seem like so long for people, but when I'm writing and I'm in it with my characters, they are no different to me than myself, you and David sitting right here right now. I don't see them as a removed segment of history. I see them as living, breathing people here and now.
Exactly.
So I don't have a separation. And I think a lot of Black people don't have a separation because if you really believe in the science of generational trauma, if you really believe in that, if you are listening to the stories that your mama and your daddy and your grandparents told you growing up. I was raised by my grandfather, who was born in 1922, Gwinnett County, Georgia. How much in common do you think the man I live with now, right, my white Hawkeye loving husband has? I have bridged this gap between these two
get to the
different.
Hawkeye loving thing in a minute, because in researching you a little bit, my wife is white, so I don't have love who you love. I believe in that, but I'll be damned if I marry a Hawkeye fan. That's just real talk.
You know what? Because you know what? Let me tell you, he is disappointed my whole family with that shit. But let me tell you, that man tricked me. I didn't care. I didn't care about football at all. And one day he comes home when we first started dating, and he brings me a brand like a ton of Hawkeye gear. He's like, baby, here's some new pants. Here's a new shirt. And I was like, oh, this is cute.
That's how they do. That's how they do.
I was like, oh, okay, go Hawks.
David, that's how they do.
It worked. I got converted. My kids are Hawkeyes. My son just went to his first Hawkeye game. My grandfather is rolling over in his Husker-loving grave. I promise you, but I'm sorry, Daddy.
Not the kids.
I'm sorry, Daddy. Okay,
I digress,
he came home with the clothes.
He came with gear.
He came with gear. I
gear.
didn't care. It could have been Michigan. It could have been Arizona. I wouldn't care.
Someone brings you gear. You're at that point. You were like, "Hey,
you bought this for me? I love it." Every time, let me tell you, every time LeBron switches teams, I get a new outfit. I had Cavaliers.
I will tell you, that's me too. I'm a LeBron fan because we don't have a pro team. So I got to follow players.
Yep.
You know, If LeBron was at Milwaukee Bucks, I'd have a Bucks shirt.
That's right.
I hate being down with the Lakers because they've always kind of been the nemesis of teams that I like. But yeah.
You mean the Patriots?
Well, no, not
What,
not,
the Patriots?
not the
No.
Yankees, young David.
What do you mean the Patriots?
Yeah,
I don't. No, we don't do. No, okay, now that. Now that's even too far for me. Okay, I don't even follow this shit, but that's too much for me.
but let's digress though. So, I do have a question.
Yeah.
As you know, because I've been raving about to all my friends and to you how much I loved the play. It was, when it was done, I sat in my chair literally for probably 20 minutes. Everybody left out and it's just me and my wife. And I'm like, whoa. Because I finally had like something tangible that I could grab or see or witness to put to the Will Brown story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was very powerful for me that way. I'm curious. I think what gets most people about the Will Brown story is when they see that picture of Will Brown after he'd been lynched, shot, stabbed, tortured, and he's burning in a pile like he is a log on a campfire.
Yep.
And you have hundreds of white Omahans in the background. And if you just cropped everything out and looked at the audience and looked at the mob, you would think they were at a sporting event, at some, they had just been to something grand that brought everyone together. They were happy. Just as a human being, you wouldn't think someone would take joy in and I'm talking kids, teenagers, adults, all there together. Like it was, hey, we're all here together enjoying this. So that's what struck me so hard when I first got into the Will Brown story. But I didn't see that image in its fullness in the play. Why?
Because it is not their story anymore. It is not the story of them having a good time around the barbecued body of a dead man. As far as I'm concerned, they can get fucked. This story is about Will's life. And the reason why in that final scene, you see him telling you how he was lynched. Right. He is reclaiming that. He hasn't had that agency. Will Brown has always been just, right, like you said, like folklore. He's always been part of this bigger story about Omaha political corruption. And then he was just part of a patsy and all of that. Right. And I don't care about any of that.
Right.
We need to talk about who he is as a human being. In my mind, Will Brown is like, right? He's like what we know today as a hashtag, Right. And I think that there are still those mobs. They still exist. They don't lynch people from light poles anymore, maybe, but you can go to the comment sections on newspapers and online, and you can find who would be in that mob if they could. Yeah. So, and I said this in one of our talkbacks, like I could write 20 different plays about 20 different people who had been lynched, either historically so or modern day lynched, and all of those stories would be different, and you would have pushback on every single one of them, because there's always a mob around ready to do that.
I for one, I thought it was brilliant. And the story, as I was watching the play, it was touching me in such a way, it was so deep that I found myself clenching my chair tight because I knew that visual was coming. So after all I just seen, and then you get to know Will through this play and you get to relate to him, I was like, oh man, I know it's coming and I'm gonna lose it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And personally, it let me off the hook emotionally with that visual. It was like, oh damn, okay, because the play was enough. I got it, I felt it, but a part of me, I would be lying if I say I didn't feel this. I was like, okay, I feel like this is gonna hurt, but
You wanted
White
that
people
heard.
got to see it, man. You know what?
Right.
Show it to them. Get them.
Right.
Get them. This is what they about to get it. Here it come. I'm
Right.
like, oh, shit. They didn't get it.
No.
Okay. All right. Because as powerful as it was, and it was extremely powerful, I wonder what the energy would have been like if that image was left at the end. I don't know. For me, it would have been like, man, you know what? I'm not gonna be able to come out of my house for a couple days.
Yeah.
It would have had that effect on me. I wonder the effect it would have had on the white community.
You know, I think if I were guaranteed, this is probably true, I think, if I were guaranteed an all-white audience, I would probably reconsider my decision to not show the picture. But a huge part of my decision in not showing it also is that I'm writing about this man's life and bringing him back to life for my Black audience. And it is not, I refuse to sit there and re-traumatize
I feel you.
you all
I feel
because
you.
by having to see that.
Well, I thank you for that. I needed to not see that personally.
Yeah.
But there was a part of me is like, oh, y'all gonna see this.
Yeah, you know,
Y'all
there's a
go-
part of me.
Right.
I have that same mentality, like just get them, hook them,
Yeah.
you
right.
know. But I just couldn't do that to other people in that audience.
Because again, listen, I'm not one, and obviously you're not one, that holds someone accountable for the sins of their fathers. But in 2019, it is just, it's unresponsible to be as ignorant as people are about our history. And you can say, oh, it's the people are dumb or you know, blah, blah, blah. It's, at this point, it's just irresponsible.
Is willful.
Yeah.
It is absolutely
Right.
willful
Right.
to be ignorant. And if it goes from the top down, our leadership is telling you it's fine to be dumb.
Yeah.
Be dumb and be adamant about it, and you can get whatever
Right.
you want.
Right.
I think, and I found, especially over this weekend, because this past weekend was the actual anniversary, white people are very triggered by Black history.
Mm-hmm.
And not, and I feel like I have to qualify that with not all white people. We know,
Right. Right.
not all y'all.
Yeah. Right.
But there are some people out there who are angry. I even wrote this play. Some people are like, why are you dredging this up? You're race baiting.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing all of these, you know, code words that they use now instead of just telling the truth about our history for us, by us.
Right.
And that is extremely frustrating, but it's really opened my eyes to just how triggering even facts
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
some.
Again, I go back to context, you know, and with me making my album Negro Manifesto, it's like the divide is because people don't really have something to relate it to. Blacks can because we live it.
Mm-hmm.
It's something physical that we can touch inside of our soul. It may as well be any other history that happened, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years ago in another country. For most Americans, that's what our American history is to them.
Yeah.
You know, it may as well be, oh yeah, back in, you know,
The Ming Dynasty.
Exactly. You know, it's something totally different to them. To us, we feel American history because it is us. And it's hard to get someone, it's hard to reach common ground. Even those who are open, it's hard to reach common ground with someone that can't feel something, right? It
Yeah.
takes a special purpose. Because really, I mean, let's be honest. It's like, what motivation would the average white person have to really empathize with someone when they're the one at top of the totem pole, when they're the one that historically are benefiting from leveraging against people of color? If they're benefiting from that, even if it's inadvertent, it's like you have to be a special person to come outside of that natural feeling of being on top or benefiting, being a benefactor of that. It takes a special person to come outside of that and say, you know what, though, something's not right.
Yeah.
Just on a human level, not even about black or white. It could be flipped, and I think blacks would have some of those same feelings. If you're on top, it's easy to just want to keep your position.
Well, I check myself on that sometimes. You know, when we get so much news influxed from around the world and so much of it is tragic or just fucked up,
Yeah.
you know, I ask myself, would I ever trade places with those people? I'm like, oh, well, you know what? I'm in America, so this shit is pretty good.
Right.
And I see my own American
Yeah.
privilege right there.
Yeah.
So I can check it that way.
You know, the thing that slavery is not unique to America, obviously. Our tragic history is not unique to just us. I think what is unique in the history of America, in our story as we were born as a nation, is you put all those things, injustices, slavery, leveraging against another, your fellow man, couple that with capitalism, then you have America. Because with that, it became something at a much higher level, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, Russia was enslaving their people, much in the same way our penal system is, you know? But America said, you know what, man? Okay, yeah, I like how you're doing the slavery thing, cool. But man, we could max it out by doing this. And the capitalist nature that is America, it almost counteracts any humanitarian efforts as a nation that we could have or we could embody to really make strides. You know,
Right.
It's like who we are at the core. It's hard to really get to that other place.
Well, when you're built on not only genocide, but then making money off of the backs of free labor of black people, and then we turn around and it's only 150 years, 170 years later. So I think the recent nature of all of that is unique to us too. And we have this huge generational wealth gap between white Americans and black Americans. And everybody's supposed to just be pulling themselves up by their bootstraps when not only were you enslaved and then you were promised money that you never received. And then we did Reconstruction, and then the Jim Crow laws that were unfair. And then you come up north so you can have a better life. And then you start getting lynched because you're up here, have a better life. And then you have to fight for the right to vote by 1965, which was like my entire family was born by
Everything
then.
has been a fight.
Yeah, everything has been a fight. And then you're supposed to just listen to some ignorant person look at you and say, you've had every opportunity to whatever. And this isn't coming from like a pity party place, because my whole family has been very successful. My whole family has like pulled themselves up. My grandparents raised 8 children in the 60s and 70s and sent all of those children to college. And now they're all doing big shit. And then it's me and my cousin's generation, and we're all doing big shit. You know, so it's not coming from a pity party place, but it is coming from a place of recognition of the entirety of the black community and where people have been left behind.
I would just like for 1 + 1 to actually equal 2. It doesn't take a whole lot. It's very simple math, right? Slavery was abolished in 1865. There were Jim Crow laws. The country was segregated until 1964. We've only been a desegregated country for 50-some years. Where was all this togetherness and equality really supposed to happen in that little time? And anybody who knows anything about history knows that that's not how it happened. So obviously there's a group of people that are still suffering from the history. And for people who don't look at it and it's that simple, it's physics, it's math. Anybody who doesn't want to look at 1 + 1 equaling 2, I think that is the travesty of the psyche of America. You know, it's really that simple. You know.
Well, I think it's like this educational letdown, like, because what do kids learn in school? We learn that blacks were slaves, and then Martin Luther King happened, and then maybe Frederick Douglass said a couple things.
There you go.
Oh, and Harriet Tubman was there.
Harriet Tubman was there.
Oh, and Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks is always there.
Okay, she, Rosa was the one.
Always there.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So we're not
Like,
learning.
why would the Red Summer not be in every historical textbook?
Because we can't have anything too condemning of white people
Right.
in our textbooks.
Right.
That is why.
And that is ultimately one of the things that works against our democracy as we try to plead it to the world. You know what I'm saying? Because most of the world is, and I've had the fortune of living in another country. It's like most of the world knows our history better than most Americans know their history. So they're looking over at us saying, wow. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that goes back to like what I was saying about Black history being so triggering for people. And it's because, in my opinion, we've learned all of American history, and all of it is filled with the stories of heroic white men. And, we can even say that these heroic white men owned slaves and they get to still be heroes, and that they killed Indians and they get to still be heroes. But if we flip that narrative and we look at it from the Native American perspective or the Black perspective, those men are no longer the heroes.
Yeah.
They're the fucking Gestapo.
Yeah, you're right.
So they had to pick a side, And so if white people are in right companies are the ones making our textbooks and teaching in our schools and all of this stuff, of course that's what is going to be on the platter.
I think people would have such a greater understanding of context if the entire story were told on both sides. 'Cause, I mean, there's a lot of ignorant Black folks.
Yes,
that
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
I want to eradicate stupidness altogether.
Yeah. And, for one, if Black kids could see the whole picture, they would understand the resilience of Black people. Mm-hmm. That in itself would give them power. There's been a systemic taking of Black pride for a long time in this country. And I think that has been the hardest thing for Black people as a people to overcome collectively. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some that are have that naturally. I think I was blessed to just have natural confidence from how I was raised. I think I was what someone would consider a type A personality. He was outgoing, if he fell down to get back up. And there are people that have much more of that than me. If you take out whatever that is at the top and take out whatever it is at the bottom, people who were going to be full of shit anyway, and you're left with just whatever the middle is or the common person, that's where we're suffering. It's like, and that's when you say, okay, listen, as a people, we are suffering from this. And someone say, well, wow, everything's equal now. People should just pick themselves up by the bootstraps and get on with it. Well, there's something to a group of people that have a harder time doing that. There's a reason for everything.
Yeah.
People they don't just come out of the womb saying, you know what, man, I'm going to, live in poverty, or I'm going to be a have-not. I'm going to have little drive. I'm going to have little confidence in myself. None of those things are just innate.
Right.
Those things are learned. That's a learned feeling or self-existence. So that's the problem we have here. It's like kids don't naturally. That's why I was so driven to teach kids. I never wanted a kid to ever feel that. Because I think every Black kid feels that at some point that grows up. They feel like, wow, you know what, man? It's not looking good for me. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like that too. I feel the same way you. Like, I'm a very charismatic go-getter,
right.
type A. So like nothing was really going to ever hold me back from doing what I needed
Right.
to do.
Exactly.
I don't
Like
know
nothing-
how you instill that in people.
You can't. I think that you're born with that. But there are a lot of things that, okay, gifts that I might have, but there are gifts that other people that maybe don't have that particular thing have an abundance of that I wish I had.
Yeah.
Everybody's given different gifts, but I think it is very hard for someone to succeed in America or to maximize their potential without that. And it's a lot easier if you're white to not have that but still succeed, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense because, well, that's where privilege comes into it. There's a lot of mediocre white kids that grow up to be, great people. And it goes back to Black people. If you want to succeed, you have to be a certain level of excellence in some way. And I think too, I always get pushback. There's a friend of mine who's on Facebook and she's always giving me pushback about she's Black and she's African really, but she's been here for a long time. And she's like, you African Americans need to fix stuff in your own communities. And I'm like, oh, shut up. But it is true in a way that I think
It is true.
that
It's not wrong.
it's not wrong. It's not wrong.
It's
But I
not
have to be
wrong.
delicate
Yeah.
about responding to that
Right.
because first of all, I get very sensitive about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is true. And I think that exposing our young children to the arts, to trade jobs,
Mm.
to greater existences is really important
Right.
because, we talk a lot about breaking cycles in families. And I think that there are a lot of cycles that are just repeating themselves from those darker days. And then I think, we see kids see Tamir Rice getting shot on TV.
Right.
And you carry a shame with you. You carry
Right.
a, am I not good enough?
Yeah.
And then if you don't have a Black teacher or a Black mentor, or if you don't have a parent around or, or your parents are working really hard and so you don't see them often, you start to fall through those cracks.
Yeah. And unless you have an abundance of what we're talking, like I roll with a healthy dose of fuck you. You know what I'm saying? That was a shield from a lot of what you're talking, and I
Yeah.
can tell that you did as well.
Yeah.
But again, and that may be a whole nother discussion, but because that's really deep to Black people. And when we talk about Black pride, or when Black says Black Lives Matter, and then someone white may say, well, all lives matter. Well, it's like, duh. It's like, why would someone Black feel the need to speak up on their pride for who they are? There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like no one's just grabbing out of the air. Wow, I'm just going to have just some random overdone pride shit for no reason. No. It's like we have to do that to drive the point home that we are important. We are someone. We are valid. You know what I'm saying?
Even that resistance to Black Lives Matter is such bullshit. It's so willful.
Yeah.
I can break this down for you contextually and you still refuse to understand it.
Yeah.
I don't see all lives matter people coming out when a white person is innocently shot by
Right.
an innocent white person is shot by cops.
Yeah.
I don't see all lives matter coming out for them. That's just
And when you talk about the Will Brown stuff, and sometimes I feel almost like I am short-sighted sometimes when I just talk about the Will Brown thing, because there's so much that happened in the Red Summer that makes even the Will Brown thing seem small. You know, I mean, obviously not small if someone's losing their life. But you take like something, what was it? Arkansas?
Elaine,
Arkansas.
Just 2 days later.
I mean,
Yesterday, 100 years ago, 237 sharecroppers were lynched.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
237. How many men did they have to gather to kill 237 men?
and around that time when Blacks, I think, were learning to try to use the country to to their benefit. Okay, they were learning to unionize. They were learning to come together, much like the whites were doing. And it seemed like whenever they would try to get their little piece of the pie, it's like, oh no. So when they brought the big-time white lawyer down to Elaine, what'd they do? Well, they just kidnapped him and put him in jail and then did all their work. Much the same like in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You know,
Ask anybody. Ask how many white people do you think know about Black Wall Street ever existing?
Not many, but
how many black people know about Black Wall Street?
But you think about how polarizing something was, even when Louis Farrakhan or Malcolm X for a time would talk about, okay, we need our own stuff. We need our, obviously we're not going to be a part of this and be equal, so let us have our own stuff. I think Tulsa, Oklahoma was a great example of the resilience and power and work ethic of black people in America during that time, to be able to create an entire city that was thriving and that rivaled many of the larger cities that were just white.
Yeah.
And these were black people. And what did they do?
Yeah, burned it to the
ground.
ground.
They burned it to the ground. So when people say, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, or you have all the same opportunities, okay, if that happened just 100 years ago, where would someone have developed? Because listen, everything is passed down, whether it's wealth, whether it's fear, whether it's courage, whether it's confidence, whether it's self-esteem. A lot of that stuff is passed down. And where would black people, as a people, again, develop that sense of all you need to do is just pick yourself up by your bootstraps? Again, I'm not talking about the type A people that would have did it anyway. Just the average person. It's just not going to happen in 100 years, you know? So, yeah, that's always an interesting...
Or like, it always cracks me up when I hear people say, the shit I see people say online just trips me up. You know, why are blacks so violent? And I'm like, are you kidding?
Right.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Have you seen?
Yeah.
Have you read?
Yeah.
Can you please just reckon with your own history?
Right.
And stop worrying about folks in Chicago?
Right.
Please.
I explained to a white guy at my country club. Yes, I do golf.
Of course you do.
Anyways, about, okay, so there's this thing where black guys sort of are always mad or always have a look on their face. And I don't necessarily think that's true, but there's part of that I can relate to that might be somewhat factual. So I was trying to think about that because I think I lived in Harlem for 6-7 years of my time in New York. I think it's very natural for a black guy to walk around, especially if he's around a lot of white guys, with a look on his face, because on the inside, he's maybe thinking, okay, they're probably saying, fuck this dude, me. So subconsciously, you're responding in kind and on a vibe like, no, fuck you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I don't think it's anything, I don't think about that. I don't think a lot of other black people may think about that, but I think that you're conditioned to kind of roll like that, and it's almost a protective shield.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have we heard about the angry black woman, or like, you're intimidating. Why am I intimidating?
Right.
Because you're weak? I don't know.
Right.
Like, I hate that. I hear that all the time. I'm not intimidating. You're weak.
Though, boy, my aunties are scary. And
yeah, my aunties.
It's like, man, you are actually an angry black woman. I mean, it's like, yeah, they hit that nail on the head. You are an angry black. Yeah, but
I think it's important for everybody to realize, like, wake up about how we've been looking at black people in America as a monolith, and we've got very different experiences in life. as many different experiences in life as any white family out there. You know, the thing that pulls us all back together is the same way that we got here. We all got here in the same way, and we share that history.
Exactly.
But the way we've branched off into our different lives and our different existences is very, very different. And so it's dangerous to say that you're just like this other black guy that I knew, or like ever compare my ass to Candace Owens or whatever.
Right.
You know, we have to but people just need to respect the differences in the black experience of life in America.
Right. Well said. Well, listen, I love what you're doing, girl.
Thank you.
I love what you're about. It's the first. I don't know how we haven't met before now, but
We
it's
may.
like,
I was drinking really heavy before I had kids, so we may have, Dana. I don't know where you were. I don't know where you used to hang out. I might have seen you out.
it's like, but it feels like we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to add with? Definitely, people, get out and see the Red Summer at the Blue Barn, downtown Omaha. And you guys are playing for how long?
Yeah, we're playing until October 20th. We're almost sold out. We may be adding Wednesday. We may be adding Wednesday shows. So look for that. Go to bluebarn.org. The shows are at 7:30 at night. Tickets range from $20 to $35. And I think it's an important start to opening up these conversations.
You know what? I like to say this all the time. It's like there's never any growth without discomfort. You
That's
can't
right.
have one without the other. And people, even though there is discomfort in a lot of our history, the responsible thing is to look at the facts, educate yourself, because, again, that breeds context. And that ultimately is how we'll find common ground, I think.
I think so too. And I think, you know, playing with not only the trauma of our shared experiences from our people's history, but also the resilience, like you mentioned, and the joy and the power and the family. That is what keeps me coming back.
Beautifully said. Mrs. Bofield Berry Fisher, once again, this Dana Murray podcast coming at you guys. I will see you again soon. Peace.
Bye-bye.